You are a free man, just like your mother named you.
Aslam, the servant of Imam Hussain, was next. He fought very bravely. When he was badly wounded, he called on the Imam for help. Imam came to him and hugged him for the last time. Aslam smiled, thanked Allah for granting him martyrdom, and passed away. Muslim ibn Awsajah assaulted the enemy and fought very bravely. Amr ibn al-Hajjaj, along with his troops, counterattacked the camp of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. When the two forces clashed and the dust settled, Muslim ibn Awsajah was found fallen but still alive. Imam Hussain and Habib ibn Mudahir rushed to him. Imam said to him, "May Allah have mercy on you, Muslim." Habib said, "I'm very sorry to see in this state. You are entering paradise, O Muslim. If I wasn't absolutely sure that I will follow your footsteps, I would have asked you to give me your last will." Muslim said, "Yes, my will is to take care of this man," pointing at the Imam. "Sacrifice the last breath you have for him." Habib told him, "Rest assured that I will." Among those who remained alive at this stage was Wahab al-Kalbi. Wahab was a Christian who was accompanied by his newly married wife and mother. All of them declared their Islam before Imam Hussain alayhi salam on the way to Karbala. His mother urged him to do his best in the battlefield. His wife did not want him to go. They were newlyweds. Nevertheless, he entered the battlefield, killing some and wounding others. He returned to his mother and said, "Mother, are you satisfied with me? I'll never be satisfied until you are killed for the cause of Imam Hussain alayhi salam." His wife said, "For God's sake, we have just got married and I cannot stand even the thought of your death." His mother interrupted, saying, "Don't listen to her. Go back and fight for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. You will earn his grandfather's intercession on the judgment day." He got back fighting until he killed 19 knights and another 20 of the infantry. Then his fingers were cut. At that moment his wife carried a pole and rushed towards him, saying, "فداك أبي وأمي قاتل دون الطيبين حرم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله." May my father and my mother be your sacrificial right for the sake of the household of Rasulullah. Don't return alive to me. I have said some time ago, you were objecting and now you are urging me to fight. What happened? His wife said, "Ya Wahab la talumni, inna wa'iyat al-Hussain qatta'at riyad qalbi." يا وهب رأيته جالسا بباب الخيمة وهو ينادي وقلة ناصراه. Don't blame me, Wahab. I have forsaken life since I heard Imam Hussain calling, "Oh my God, oh how we are left alone. Is there anyone to support us?" His voice really wounded my heart. Wahab kept fighting till he lost both his arms and was killed. His wife walked towards his body and sat near his head, wiping away blood and saying, "Congratulations, for you are guaranteed a place in heaven. I pray to the Almighty to bestow it on me to make me join you." Shimr ibn al-Jawshan, who was around, dispatched his servant to kill her. He dealt a fatal blow to her head with a truncheon and she died immediately.
After praying the noon prayers, John, the servant of Abu Dhar, approached Imam Hussain, asking for permission to fight. Imam told him that he doesn't need to fight and that he can leave the battle. John began to cry. He told the Imam, at the times of comfort I was with you, but at times of hardship I abandon you. Never. I will fight with you until my blood mixes with your noble blood. John entered and fought very bravely until he fell and called for the Imam. Imam Hussain wept over him and then put his cheeks on the cheeks of John. Once all of the companions had passed away, the family of Imam Hussain got ready for battle. The first to come forward was Ali al-Akbar, Imam Hussein's oldest son. He was 27 years old. When Ali asked for permission from his father, Imam Hussain could not hold back his tears. He looked to Umar bin Sa'd and said, قطع الله رحمك كما قطعت رحمي ولم تحفظ قرابتي من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلط عليك من يذبحك على فراشك. ثم رفع شيبته المقدسة نحو السماء وقال: اللهم اشهد على هؤلاء القوم فقد برز إليهم أشبه الناس برسولك محمد خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا، وكنا إذا اشتقنا إلى رؤية نبيك نظرنا إلى وجه هذا الغلام. O Umar, may Allah bereave you of your family the same way you bereaved me of mine. May Allah send someone to kill you on your bed. He then looked to the sky and said, O Allah, bear witness on this people. The most similar youth to the Prophet has come out to meet them. O Allah, deprive them from the riches of the land, divide them, and bring your wrath upon them. Ali al-Akbar entered the battle, killing tens from the troops and reciting, أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي أضربكم بالسيف أحمي عن أبي ضرب غلام هاشمي علوي تالله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي. Due to the immense thirst he felt and the pain from the scorching sun, he came back to his camp asking his father for water. Imam Hussain told him that he's thirstier than his son and assured him that Rasulullah will be the first to quench his thirst. يا شربة المية الجبدي أتقوى ورد للميدان وحدي يا ابويا انفطر جبدي وحق جدي العطش والشمس والميدان والحر. Ali went back fighting with greater fears. It was as if his grandfather Imam Ali was in the battlefield. Finally Murra ibn Munqidh approached him and dealt a blow to Ali's head, causing him to fall from his horse not being able to see the blood covering his due to the blood covering his eyes, dragged Ali to the enemy's camp. The enemy troops cut his limbs into pieces. Ali al-Akbar lastly cried out loud, عليك مني السلام أبا عبد الله هذا جدي قد سقاني بكأسه شربة لا أظمأ بعدها أبدا. Oh Aba Abdullah, farewell. Here is my grandfather from whose cup I have drunk. Never again will I be thirsty. He says that there is a cup waiting for you. Imam Hussain rushed to him, saying what is remaining from his son Ali. Imam put his cheeks on the cheeks of Ali, saying, على الدنيا بعدك العفا ما أجرأهم على الرحمن وعلى انتهاك حرمة الرسول. يعز على جدك وأبيك أن تدعوهم فلا يجيبونك وتستغيث بهم فلا يغيثوك. Life is not worth living anymore after you, my son. How dare they encroach on Allah and violate the sanctity of the Prophet. Alas, it is hard on your grandfather and your father that you call on them for help, which they cannot provide. He then scooped a handful of his pure blood and threw it to the sky. Not a single jot fell to the ground. Imam Hussain then ordered the youth to come and carry Ali back to the camp. The women gathered around Ali, weeping, crying, beating their chests.
The time was now for the 14-year-old Qasim, the son of Imam al-Hassan. Imam Hussain first refused to give him permission, since Qasim was the only memory remaining of his brother al-Hassan. Qasim brought a letter to Imam Hussain, which was from Imam Hassan alayhi salam, urging him to allow his son to fight. Imam hugged Qasim and wept emotionally, and then allowed him to go on. Qasim fought very bravely and saying, إن تنكروني فأنا نجل الحسن إن تنكروني فأنا نجل الحسن سبط النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لا سقوا صوب المزن. Until the sandal snapped as he bent down to fix it. Amr ibn Sa'd al-Asadi hit him with his sword on his head. Imam Hussain alayhi salam rushed to him, crying over his body, saying in sad voice, بعدا لقوم قتلوك خصمهم يوم القيامة جدك وأبوك. ثم قال عليه السلام, عز والله على عمك أن تدعوه فلا يجيبك أو يجيبك ثم لا ينفعك صوت والله كثر واتره وقل ناصره. بجا ونادى يا جاسم إيش بيدي يا ريت السيف قبلك حاز وريدي عليكم تخلوني وحيدي وعلى خيامي يا عمي القيام تفتح. It is with great regret that I'm helpless. You call, but I can't respond, or when I respond, but I can't help. Qasim was brought back to the tents. They put his body next to the body of Ali al-Akbar and other youth and said, Imam said, Allahumma ahsihim adada wa la tughadir minhum ahada wa la taghfir lahum abada. صبرا يا بني عمومتي صبرا يا أهل بيتي لا رأيتم هوانا بعد هذا اليوم أبدا. O Lord, don't lose count of them and do not forgive them ever. O cousins, for fear and adversity you shall never see disgrace after today. When Abbas alayhi salam saw the death toll rising, he stood up and ordered his brothers Abdullah, Uthman and Ja'far to enter the battlefield and fight one by one. His brothers fought and were killed. One by one his brothers fought and were killed. It was now time for Abbas himself to enter the battle. He came to his brother Imam Hussain seeking permission to go fight. Imam Hussain did not want to lose Abbas. Tears filled the eyes of Imam Hussain. "Oh brother," Imam Hussain alayhi salam said, "you are the bearer of my flag. If you die, my entire army will collapse and my enemies will rejoice." Abbas replied, "I am tired of these hypocrites. I cannot stand the sounds of the children crying out of thirst. Their sounds of thirst is killing me. I want to seek my revenge." When Imam Hussain alayhi salam saw Abbas lament about fighting, he said, "My brother, go and seek some water for these children." Abbas immediately mounted his horse, took the water skin container and headed towards the river. Cutting through the enemy lines, he was surrounded by some 4,000 troops who shot at him with their arrows, but he did not fear their multitudes. The standard hoisted over his head. He started attacking them, causing them to flee in front of him, and he managed to reach the waterline of the river with fortitude. As soon as he reached the river, he grabbed a handful of water to drink, but then remembered the thirst of his brother, Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He dropped the water immediately. He couldn't drink while Imam Hussain and their children were still thirsty. يا نفس من بعد الحسين هوني يا نفس من بعد الحسين هوني وبعده لا كنت أن تكوني هذا الحسين وارد المنون وتشربين بارد المعين تالله ما هذا فعال ديني ولا فعال صادق اليقين.
Abbas filled his water skin, mounted his horse again, and headed towards his camp. All of a sudden the enemy troops surrounded him from every direction. They attacked him all together. Zayd ibn al-Raqad and al-Hakim ibn al-Tufail were hiding behind a tree, waiting for Abbas to approach. Zayd or Ziyad hit Abbas on his right arm, immediately cutting it off. Abbas began to recite, "Wallahi in qada'tumu yamini, inni uhami abadan an dini, وعن إمام صادق اليقين نجل النبي الطاهر الأمين." He grabbed the water, he grabbed the container in his left arm until Hakim came out and hit his left arm as well. Abbas said, "Ya nafsu la takhshay min al-kuffari وأبشري برحمة الجبار ببغي قد قطعوا يساري فأصلهم يا رب حر النار." He managed to grab the water skin with his teeth, staying without his two arms. He headed towards the camp, but the enemy did not give him a chance. They rained him with arrows, one falling in his eye and one hitting the water skin, causing it to drop, and another arrow pierced through his chest. And Abbas was hopeless. When the container fell, Abbas lost all hope, stopped going towards the camp. Instead, he stood in his spot. All of a sudden, one of the wicked troops hit him with a pole on his head, causing Abbas to fall on the ground. calling Imam Hussain for help. Al-Salam alayka ya Aba Abdullah, ya akhi, adrik akhak. My brother Aba Abdullah, may the peace of Allah be upon you. I have fallen to the ground. Imam Hussain rushed to him, causing the enemy troops to flee. When Imam Hussain approached him, he first saw the water skin, then the flag on the ground. Then he saw the two arms of al-Abbas scattered on the battleground. Abbas was lying on the ground, an arrow embedded in his eye, and an arrow in his chest. Imam Hussain couldn't control himself. Crying immensely, he shouted, أخي الآن انكسر ظهري وقلت حيلتي وشمت بي عدوي. أخي من للعيال بعدك، أخي من للفواطم بعدك. Abbas, you have broken my back. Abbas, my enemy has rejoiced over your death. Abbas, there is no one to support me any longer who will safeguard the daughters of Rasulullah after you. يا خويا انكسر ظهري ولك دراقوم وصرت مركز يا خويا الكل الهموم. يا خويا استوحدوني عقبك القوم ولا واحد علي بعد ينغر. يا خويا الساوقع بيتي علي، يا خويا الساعد وشمت بيا. يا خويا يا ابو فاضل يا خويا قطعت بيا. Imam Hussain urged Abbas to get up so that he may take him back to the camp. Abbas refused. He had promised the children to get them water. He could not go back empty-handed. After a few moments, Imam Hussain was seen walking back to the camp alone, downhearted, sorrowful, hopeless and weeping, wiping his tears with his shirt sleeves. Imam Hussain returned to the camp. Sukaina approached and asked him about her uncle. He told her he had been killed. Zainab overheard him and screamed, "Oh, our Abbas, what a loss!" The women started crying and Hussein joined them, saying, "Wa akha, wa Abbasa, wa ضيعته بعدك."
Wa akha, wa Abbasa, wa ضيعتنا بعدك. After the death of Abbas, Imam Hussain alayhi salam was left without supporters. He looked around and saw nothing but dead bodies around him. He kept on shouting, هل من داب يذب عن حرم رسول الله؟ هل من موحد يخاف الله فينا؟ هل من مغيث يرجو الله في إغاثتنا؟ Is there no one to help us? Is there no one to protect us? Before Imam Hussain said his last farewell, his sister Zainab alayhi salam brought him his infant Abdullah. Zainab told him, "My brother, before you go, please ask these men for a few drops of water for this child. This child is dying out of thirst. He can no longer breathe." Imam Hussain alayhi salam grabbed his son and headed towards the enemy and asked them for a few drops of water. The enemy huddled around each other to decide whether to give him water or not. All of a sudden, Harmala,
shot the infant with an arrow, which pierced through the child's thinking, killing him instantly. Imam Hussain alayhi salam scooped the blood that was dropping from Abdullah's neck and threw it to the sky and said, هون علي ما نزل بي أنه بعين الله اللهم لا يكونن ابني هذا أهون عليك. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, none of the drops came back to the ground anymore. Imam Hussain alayhi salam came back and handed over the child to his daughter Sukaina. Other narrations say that Imam Hussain alayhi salam buried the infant right away. At the time, Imam Hussain alayhi salam looked hopeless to live, downhearted, sorrowful and determined to meet his Lord and will be facing martyrdom. He came back to his family, bidding them farewell for one last time. Ya Zainab, wa ya Kulthum, wa ya Sukaina, wa ya Ruqayya, wa ya Rabab, عليكن مني السلام الوداع الوداع فهذا آخر الاجتماع قد قرب منكن الافتجاع واستعدوا للبلاء واعلموا أن الله حافظكم وحاميكم وسينجيكم من شر الأعداء. رادوي عياله من العطش يوما رادوي عياله من العطش يوما وصاحي حسين للتوديع قوما مثل سر بالقطع قامر يحوما تطيحي عليه وحدته وتعثر. أو زينب أو أم كلثوم أو رقية أو سكينة أو رباب, may peace be with you. I am going away and we shall meet in paradise. Be patient after my death, for you have many tragedies awaiting you. Then he asked for his horse. Zainab alayhi salam brings him his horse, tears filling her eyes. When Imam Hussain alayhi salam mounted his horse and headed towards the battlefield, he heard a faint voice calling him from behind. He looked back to see it was his sister Zainab, asking him to come down from his horse. She told him, "There's one thing I need to do. Come down from your horse." She embraced him and printed a kiss on his neck and his chest, then looked towards Medina and said, "My mother Fatima, I did as you told me to do." Imam Hussain alayhi salam rode his horse one last time and charged to the enemy by reciting, "Ana al-Hussain ibn Ali, Ana al-Hussain ibn Ali, عليت أن لا أنثني أحمي عيالات أبي أمضي على دين النبي." Thereupon Umar bin Sa' yelled at the crowd, "Mind, he is the son of the exterminator of the Arabs." Set upon him from every direction, they rained him with 4,000 arrows. The soldiers cut off his camp. He shouted, "ويحكم يا شيعة آل أبي سفيان إن لم يكن لكم دين وكنتم لا تخافون المعاد فكونوا أحرارا في دنياكم
إن كنتم عربا كما تزعمون.
Shimr said, "What are you saying, O son of Fatima?" Hussain replied, "I am the one who is fighting you, and the women are not at fault. So as long as I am alive, forbid your thugs from harassing my women." Shimr acceded to his request, whereupon the enemy soldiers targeted him. A fierce fighting raged. Since he was very thirsty, he attacked the flank of the army which was sailing off the river. He managed to disperse them and make his way to the river. Once he was in the water, he extended his hand to drink. A caller shouted, "The
bin Sa' yelled up the crowd, "Mine, he is the son of the exterminator of the Arabs." Set upon him from every direction. They rained him with 4,000 arrows. The soldiers cut off his camp. He shouted, "ويحكم يا شيعة آل أبي سفيان إن لم يكن لكم دين وكنتم لا تخافون المعاد فكونوا أحرارا في دنياكم إن كنتم عربا كما تزعمون."
Shimr said, "What are you saying, O son of Fatima?" Hussain replied, "I am the one who is fighting you, and the women are not at fault. So as long as I am alive, forbid your thugs from harassing my women." Shimr acceded to his request, whereupon the enemy soldiers targeted him. A fierce fighting raged. Since he was very thirsty, he attacked the flank of the army which was sailing off the river. He managed to disperse them and make his way to the river. Once he was in the water, he extended his hand to drink. A caller shouted, "Do you enjoy drinking water while the integrity of your family is being violated?" He let the water spill from his hands without drinking and returned to the tents and charged to the enemy once again. When Umar bin Sa'd saw him approaching, he ordered his soldiers to attack him from every direction. One by one they met the Imam, and the Imam fought them fiercely, killing tens of them, and after being severely wounded, the Imam became tired. He asked the enemy for some water. Shimr answered, "You are not going to taste it until you enter hellfire." Imam Hussain had to stop and rest. As he was resting, one of the enemies hit him with a stone on his forehead, causing blood to gush down from the Imam's face. The Imam took out a piece of cloth to wipe the blood off his face. Suddenly, another enemy pointed a three-headed poisonous arrow at the Imam, penetrating the Imam's chest and heart. The Imam began to recite, "Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah, sabran ala qada'ik, la ma'buda siwak, aghithni ya ghiyath al-mustaghithin." He then raised his head to the sky and said, "O Allah, you know very well that they are killing the grandson of the Prophet, and there is no other grandson besides him." He pulled out the arrow from his chest, causing the blood to stream down. He put his hand under his chest, filling it with blood. Then he threw the blood towards the sky and said, "My comfort is that what has befallen me is in the way of Allah." He filled his hand again with blood, this time staining his hair and beard. He said, "I wish to meet Allah and my grandfather drenched with my blood." Imam Hussain, fatally wounded, was left lying on the ground for a considerable time. None of the soldiers had the boldness to come finish him off. The Imam's horse started roaming around him, staining his forehead with the Imam's blood. The horse kept on circling around the Imam as if to tell him, get up because the enemy's approaching. Imam al-Baqir was quoted saying, the horse was saying, الظليمة الظليمة من أمة قتلت ابن بنت نبيها. What an injustice has been done to the grandson of the Prophet by his own nation. The horse then headed towards the camp of Imam Hussain. The woman heard the voice of the horse, thinking that Imam Hussain had come back to them. However, they came out of their tents to see the horse without the night, drenched in the blood of his master. They began to beat their chests, shouting, Wa Husayna! Zainab immediately rushed to the scene to see what is happening of her brother. She saw the Imam lying on the ground, surrounded by the enemy. Zainab shouted, Oh Umar, have you no mercy to see my brother in this state? Umar bin Sa'd, his tears streaming down his face, shouted to the soldiers, Go down to him and bring him peace, meaning one of you must kill him. At the sound of this command, Jibr ibn al-Jawshan began approaching the Imam. Our master Imam al-Mahdi salutes his grandfather as he describes the last moments of his father. فهويت إلى الأرض جريحا تضأك الخيول بحوافرها وتعلوك الطغاة بتواترها وأسرع فرسك شاردا إلى خيامك قاصدا محمحما باكيا فلما رأينا النساء جوادك مخزيا ونظرنا إلى سرجك عليه ملويا برزنا من الخدور ناشرات الشعور على الخدود لاطمات وبالعويل داعيات وإلى مصرعك مبادرات والجمر جالس على صدرك. Jamr ibn al-Jawshan came near the Imam. He kicked the Imam several times and then he sat on his chest. Jamr ibn al-Jawshan then cursed the Imam several times and he cursed his father, Imam Ali. Jamr ibn al-Jawshan could not look in the eye of Aba Abdullah. He flipped Aba Abdullah onto his stomach and he took the sword. Jamr ibn al-Jawshan took hold of the Imam's head, lifted his sword and hit the Imam 12 times on his neck. Jamr cut off the Imam's head. أين المنادي وحسينا ومظلوما وشهيدا.
وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين. قوم على خير. وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا
من له جد كجدي في الورى وحسينا وحسين أو كشيخي فأنا ابن العلمين وحسين أمي الزهراء حقا وأبي وارث العلم ومولى الثقلين وحسين من له جد كجدي في الورى وحسين أو كشيخي فأنا ابن العلمين وحسين أمي الزهراء حقا وأبي وحسين وارث العلم ومولى الثقلين وحسين جدي المرسل مصباح الدجى وأبي الموفى له بالبيعتين وحسين خيرة الله من الخلق أبي وحسين بعد جدي فأنا ابن الخيرتين خيرة الله من الخلق أبي بعد جدي فأنا ابن الخيرتين والدي شمس وأمي قمر فأنا الكوكب وابن القمرين والدي شمس وأمي قمر فأنا الكوكب وابن القمرين ذهب في ذهب في ذهب ولجين في لجين في لجين ذهب في ذهب في ذهب ولجين في لجين في لجين من له عم كعم جعفر خلق الله له أجنحتين من له عم كعم جعفر خلق الله له أجنحتين نحن أصحاب العبا خمستنا قد ملكنا شرقها والمغربين وجبريل لنا سادسنا ولنا البيت ولنا المشعرين وكذا المجد بنا مفتخر شامخا نعلو به في الحسنين يا علي المرتضى أين الحسين راغدا بالطف بين العسكرين يا علي المرتضى أين الحسين راغدا بالطف بين العسكرين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسين وحسينا وحسينا وحسين
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا ما لقي عندك آل المصطفى كربلاء ما لقي عندك آل المصطفى كربلاء كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
ما لقي عندك آل المصطفى
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
كم على تربك لما صرحوا
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
من دم سال ومن دمع جرى
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
كم على تربك لما صرحوا
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
من دم سال ومن دمع جرى
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
كم حصان الذيل يروي دمعها
كربلاء لازلت كربا وبلا
خذوها عند قتيل بالظما
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
لم يذوقوا الماء حتى اجتمعوا
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
لم يذوقوا الماء حتى اجتمعوا
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
بحد السيف على ود الردى
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
كربلاء لا زلت كربا
وبلاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
يا رسول
الله يا قائمة كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
يا رسول
الله يا قائمتهم
كربلاء
لا زلت كربا وبلاء
وهم ما بين قتل وسباق
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
لرأت عيناك منهم منظرا
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
لرأت عيناك منهم منظرا
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
للحشا حلوا وللقلب قذى
لا زلت كربا وبلاء
ليس هذا لرسول الله يا
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
ليس هذا لرسول الله يا
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
أمة الطغيان والبغي جزاء
كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء جلاك لا يوارين ضحى كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء سنن الأوجه أوقظ الطلا كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء وعلي وأبوه وابنه كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء وبدور الأرض نورا وسنا كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء جعل الله الذي نابكم كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء سبب الوجد طويل والبكاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء أنتم الشافون من ماء العمى كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء وغدا تقول من حوض الروى كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء أين أنتم للذي يرجو بكم كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء مع رسول الله فوزا ونجا كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء يوم يغدو وجهه عن عشره كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء معرضا ممتنعا عند اللقاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء شاكيا منهم إلى الله وهل كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء يفلح الحلم الذي منه شكا كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء ربي مرحم ولا هوى ولا كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء نصروا أخي ولا أبن غنى كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء نالوا فيه ونالوا أسرتي بدلوا ديني ومالوا أسرتي بالعظيمات ولم يرعوا لا كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء 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 ما لقي عندك آل المصطفى كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء كربلاء لا زلت كربا وبلاء
نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم اشفي كل مريض. اللهم داوي كل جريح، اللهم اكسو كل عريان، اللهم اشبع كل جائع، اللهم اغني كل فقير، اللهم اقضي دين كل مدين، اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك وغير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك، اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا عيبا إلا سترته، ولا خوفا إلا آمنته، ولا رزقا إلا بسطته، ولا شملا إلا جمعته، ولا مرضا إلا شفيته، ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك روعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله.
عندي هذا الوان ممكن سويته؟ ما طلبوا لي خلاص. الحمد لله.